One of my absolute favorite places to relax and roam in the autumn time is this beautiful high mountain lake. There are usually cattails, ducks, and autumn foliage. But this year, something different caught my eye as the perfect reference for an autumn watercolor painting. Hidden amongst the colorful oak leaves were some lovely little acorns that I couldn't resist trying to recreate on paper. So I invite you today to indulge in the therapeutic process of painting and let the colors of autumn soothe your soul. All we need to get started is some watercolor paper, watercolor paints, some fresh clean water, a paper towel, and of course some brushes. Now here I have a number 1 Princeton liner brush. This is my favorite brush for small, thin detail lines. Then I have a number 8 and a number 4 Artegria round brush. Now the first step to this pretty acorn and oak leaf painting is drawing a light outline sketch. Now last week I taught you how to draw this outline for yourself if you enjoy drawing. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one if you're interested. Or if you don't want to draw it but you would still like to paint it, I do have this outline available for sale for a very small price on my Etsy shop, which I will put a link to in the description of this video, along with information and links to any of the products you see me using today. Then, after you've got your outline traced or drawn on your watercolor paper lightly with a pencil, you can tape your paper down with artist tape if you'd like, and we're ready to go. So, the main color we are going to be featuring today in this painting is called yellow ochre. Now, this is not one that I use often, so I don't actually have it in a well on my favorite colors tray. So I'm just going to put a little bit on my tray here to use for today. Then along with this yellow ochre, I will also be using some raw sienna and some sap green. Now that my paints are ready, I'm going to paint a nice wash of water using the larger brush on this first oak leaf. Then I'll paint a wash of the yellow ochre that covers the entire leaf. Now it's important to note that I am going to try to have some varying values for different leaves so they don't all look exactly the same. So these first 2 leaves will be my lighter in value leaves, so the paint will be a little more watered down to achieve this look. Then after you've got this first wash of yellow ochre down, and while that paint is still wet, we're going to add in some touches of raw sienna here and there on the leaf. Just make sure you leave some spaces of the pure yellow ochre. Now we're going to add in a very small amount of sap green. I'm focusing this color mostly around the base of the leaf, as well as along some of the vein lines that we will define a little bit later on. Now I'm going to skip over this next leaf here, and I'll paint this one in a similar way as the first with similar values. I try with my art channel to provide step-by-step tutorials as well as insightful tips every week. So don't just watch art, create it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and embark on a hands-on artistic adventure. For these next two leaves I'm going to paint, we will be painting them again in the same way as the first two, but this time we want the values to be slightly darker and the color a little more concentrated using less water. Now moving on to the last two leaves, we'll again take the values one more step darker and the colors even more concentrated so that these are the darkest and most colorful of all of the leaves. All right, now that the background leaves are done, it's time to paint the main feature of this piece, the acorns. So first, using this smaller round brush, let's get some of this dark brown or burnt umber on your tray. Then start with the cups or shells of the acorns first. I'm going to paint this again using the wet on wet technique, so start by painting the section with water and then we'll paint in the colors. I'm going to put some of this yellow ochre on the top or the highlighted section. This is where the sun might be hitting the acorn cup. I'll paint this color about halfway down, and then on the shadowed area of the cup, I'll use this nice dark burnt umber color for the bottom half, and then I'll let the two colors blend slightly where they touch. Now go ahead and paint all of the three cups in the same way. And as a tip, if you'd like to have a little bit of texture to the cups, it helps to dab the color on in dots rather than painting it on smoothly. Now really quick, I'm going to paint these little acorn stems using this dark burnt umber. We need to let the cups dry before moving on to the acorns themselves. So while we wait, let's paint this little branch that stems out from the base of this bundle. I'll again start with painting on water first, then I'll take some of this burnt umber and paint it on the right side of the branch. Then I'll take some raw sienna and paint it on the left side of the branch and let them sort of blend in the middle. Then if you need to, feel free to add another line of burnt umber to that far right side if it needs to be a little bit darker. Also, really quickly, once as your leaf is dry, if you haven't already, go ahead and paint this folded over portion of the leaf with a very light or watered down yellow ochre. All right, we're finally ready for the last step to this painting, the acorns themselves. Now, in my opinion, this is the hardest part of this whole painting, but don't worry, we'll go through it step by step. First, I'll paint the section with water, then I'll mix up a really nice dark brown by mixing together some burnt umber with some ivory black that we will use in just a minute for the shadowed area. Then I'll take some of this pure or unmixed burnt umber and paint that on the majority of the acorn, except where I'm wanting a highlight to be. Now, while that paint is still wet, take some of that really dark brown we mixed up and paint it in at the bottom area of the acorn to create a nice dark shadow. If you need to, you can use some pure ivory black to make it even darker. Now, here's the trick to really making this acorn look shiny and realistic. Take your brush, rinse it off, and then dry it off on your paper towel. Then use the bristles to wipe off some of the color that may have spread into your highlighted area, as well as a little bit right here at the bottom section or within the shadowed area of the acorn. This is called the reflected light, and doing this will really make your acorn look more 3D. Now just paint the other two acorns in a similar way. Just as you paint, keep in mind where the light is coming from and where it would be hitting on the acorn, so they all have highlights coming from the same direction and same source. Well done. Now to add the finishing touch and detail work to this painting, let's paint on some thin veins on the leaves. I'm just going to water down this raw sienna a little bit more so that the color of the veins don't overpower the leaves. This should be an accent, not the main focus. Then using this Princeton liner brush and the watered down light brown, I'll carefully paint on the veins. And that's it for today's lovely autumn masterpiece. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you had as much fun with it as I did. If you did enjoy this tutorial, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.